Tuesday night, the 13th, it's about 9:45 in the evening. We, of course, are looking at M57, the Ring Nebula. The moon is probably in the 8th day. It's entered the second quarter. We're getting actually quite a nice view. The scope is now equatorial flipped. I do believe I'm seeing the central 15.75 magnitude star, and that could largely be because we are now in the relatively free atmospheric zone of not having the smoke that we've had over the last 3 weeks plus that have accompanied wildfires here in eastern Oregon. It's nice to breathe freely again. This view is at the standard settings. We're getting actually a particularly good view. I've adjusted the color settings for hue and intensity of color. It may have been a factor in the fact that I've always been seeing some kind of bluish nebulous field, irregular field around all the studies we've been looking at for the last week or so. So I'm hoping that this will give us a better view without the spurious nebulosity that seems to be apparent. I'm going to try to push her over to Messier 13 right now and see if it's not being blocked by the roof tri to the north and the west. Let's give it a shot. It's not the view you'd expect to see of Messier 13. We've got about 40% of the aperture being blocked by the northwest roof tri of the observatory. Still a very nice look. I might even actually try, even though the moon is present down pretty much not quite due south. It's about an hour after culmination, given the time, to have a look at Messier 22. It won't be blocked, but the sky itself will tend to be a little luminous. But for globular clusters, there's not as much of an issue. I'm going to give you some facts on Messier 13 just so we can compare them to Messier 22. So Messier 13 is a globular cluster in Hercules, magnitude 5.8. I do believe 22 is like 5.3. It's 23.2 arc minutes in size, so we're only seeing maybe the central 8 arc minutes of it. That really looks like a globular cluster. It's 25,100 light years distance. I know that's at least 2.5 times that of Messier 22. We're at right ascension 16 hour 41 minutes and 41 seconds, plus 36 degrees, 27 minutes and 37 seconds. I happen to like the view despite the fact that we've lost half of our aperture. So, on the way to Messier 22 from 13, we happen to cross paths with Messier 14. I'll give you some data on that, and if I come across any other Messiers that might be of some interest heading south, let's do them as well. We're seeing a lot of nice resolution of Messier 14, globular cluster in Ophiuchus, magnitude 7.6, so 2 magnitudes fainter than Messier 13. 6.7 arc minutes puts that at about 1/3 the size, a little more distant, 30,300 light years. We're at right ascension 17, 37, 36, and a declination below the celestial equator, 3 degrees, 14 minutes, and 45 seconds. Still, quite a nice view despite the lunacy. All right, a chopper just blew in on its way to the Blue Mountain Hospital. What we're looking at now, of course, is the Swan Nebula, Messier 17. We're still heading towards Messier 22, picking up a few studies along the way. It's in a nice part of the screen, a high contrast area. Nebula in Sagittarius, magnitude 6, 30 by 30 arc minutes, so the size of the moon, if you could see it all. 5,000 light years distant. We're at right ascension 18, 20, 48, declination minus 16, 11, still heading towards Messier 22. Okay, here we have another adventitious study on our way to Messier 22. Messier 18, open cluster in Sagittarius, magnitude 6.9, 9 arc minutes in size, about the same distance as the Swan, 4,900 light years distant. This shows you what the Swan might just turn into over the next 500,000 years. It's kind of a loose cluster though. Right ascension is 18/1954, declination minus 1708 odd. So there's our look at Messier 18 in Sagittarius. Okay, we have a very bright screen because we're looking within about 10 degrees of the 8th day moon at Messier 19, a globular cluster in Ophiuchus, the snake charmer. Magnitude 6.8, 5.3 arc minutes, 28,000 light years distance, about the same distance as the Great Hercules cluster, but much smaller, perhaps 5 times smaller. There's no data in the Messier catalog on what class globular cluster these are. You'd have to look them up in the NGC catalog, which I'm not about to do this evening. Right ascension is 17 hours, 2 minutes, 37 seconds. Declination a whopping minus 26 degrees, 16 minutes, and 5 seconds. We are getting some nice resolution, but it's against a fairly bright background lunar-filled sky. Here we have another lunar-filled background sky study. Messier 20. I believe there's some nebulosity up there. It's kind of hard to tell. It's a nebula in Sagittarius, magnitude 6.3, 28 arc minutes in size, 5,200 light years distant. So just about all these nebulosities were turning up this evening. I believe Messier 20, it does look quite familiar, although it's not a great view. This could be the Trifid Nebula. It probably is. We're at right ascension 1802.42, declination minus 2258.19, and we are seeing against a lunar backgrounded sky, I'd say we're within 15 degrees of it, enough of the Trifid Nebula to know that it is in fact the Trifid Nebula, Messier 20. Almost Messier 22, minus 1 is Messier 21. It's an open cluster in Sagittarius, brightest, magnitude 5.9, 13 arc minutes in size, so the entire cluster should fit in the field. 4,300 light years distant. Boy, there's an awful lot going on about 5,000 light years away in the direction of the galaxy's core. Light ascension is 1804.13, declination minus 22, 29, 24. There's our view, despite a moon-washed sky. Open clusters and globulars give pretty decent views, and frankly, our views of nebula at the standard settings haven't been bad either. This will be our Carpe Noctem view of the evening. We have explored a number of Messier studies from Messier 13, the Great Hercules cluster, to Messier 22. Messier 22 is a globular cluster in Sagittarius, about 0.4 magnitudes brighter than Messier 13 at magnitude 5.2, roughly the same size, a little bit smaller, 24 arc minutes, but it's only 10,400 light years away. So basically, it is not intrinsically a galaxy as gifted as the Great Hercules cluster. However, it is the brightest galaxy visible to amateur astronomers from the northern hemisphere. And we're right here at almost plus north 45 degrees of declination. So basically at 18 hours, 36 minutes and 24 seconds with a declination of minus 2354.12, we would have a zenith at almost 45 degrees. So we're looking some 68 degrees, 69 degrees south of the most ideal portion of the sky, which would be directly overhead with the least amount of atmosphere, and in this occasion, the least amount of moon wash. So there we have it, Messier 22, our last study of the evening, Carpe Noctem.